I bought the warehouse loft for one reason: the roof. 5 stories up, hidden behind a brick parapet, it was a forgotten slab of concrete overlooking the river and the old rail bridge. No pool, no hot tub, just open sky, wind, and quiet. The building itself dated back to the 1950s, long before the neighborhood filled with glass condos and influencer cafes. When it was converted into lofts, the deed was crystal clear. Unit 5B included exclusive rooftop access. Private, deeded, mine. I didn't live there full-time, mostly weekends. Over 2 years, I turned that bare concrete roof into a sanctuary. Raised garden beds, solar lights, a small pergola bolted into approved non-structural mounts. Everything permitted, everything documented. It was my escape from people who thought rules only mattered when they benefited them. That's when I met Karen. Late 30s, curly hair styled to look effortlessly important, bright pink blazer over a white blouse, clipboard tucked under one arm like a weapon. She was the HOA president, elected barely 6 months after I moved in, and she acted like she'd personally built the building. Our first interaction was quiet, too quiet. One Friday evening, I found a printed notice taped to my door. Notice: rooftop structures must comply with HOA aesthetic guidelines. Unauthorized use of common areas may result in fines. Signed neatly at the bottom, Karen, HOA President. That word hit me immediately. Common. I emailed her that same night, polite, friendly. I attached my deed and the city permit. Hi Karen, just a quick clarification. This rooftop is deeded exclusively to Unit 5B and isn't a common area. Happy to discuss if there's confusion. No reply. I assumed that settled it. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, I arrived early Saturday morning with bags of soil and new seedlings. I unlocked the stairwell door, climbed the last flight, and stopped cold. My pergola was gone. Not damaged, not dismantled. Gone. In its place sat 6 identical patio tables, each topped with a white umbrella stamped with the HOA logo. A portable bar hugged the far wall. Cafe lights were strung across my railing. At the center of the roof, flapping proudly in the breeze, hung a vinyl banner: Riverstone Lofts, Community Social. People I didn't recognize laughed, drank, and took selfies like they owned the place. Then I saw her. Karen stood near the bar, pink blazer glowing in the sun, curly hair pulled back, sunglasses perched smugly on top of her head. She spotted me instantly and smiled the way someone does when they believe resistance is already pointless. "Oh good," she said, walking over. "You're here early." "What is this?" I asked. She gestured around the rooftop. "The HOA mixer. This roof is perfect for it. Honestly, you should be thanking us." "The structure you removed was mine." Karen tilted her head, lips tightening just enough to signal irritation. "Temporary installations aren't allowed on common areas." "It's not a common area," I said, pulling up the deed on my phone. "Here, Section C, exclusive use." She glanced at the screen for half a second. "Well, the board voted last month to reinterpret rooftop access. This way, it's more inclusive." Inclusive. "Put my pergola back, now." Karen leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Let's not make a scene. We've already notified residents this space is HOA controlled. The caterer's paid, people are arriving." "So you trespassed," I said. Her smile sharpened. "Around here, the HOA decides what's trespassing." Music kicked on behind us. Laughter rose. Phones came out. Strangers stepped around my irrigation lines like they were decorations. I looked at my roof, my garden beds shoved aside, my chairs stacked like junk, footprints smeared across concrete I'd scrubbed by hand. I turned and walked back down the stairs, hands shaking. That night, I didn't sleep. By Sunday morning, it was worse. Trash bags overflowed. Someone scorched the concrete with a grill. 2 planters were cracked. My pergola still hadn't returned. Emails went unanswered. Calls went to voicemail. By Monday, I stopped asking. I started reading. City property records, HOA bylaws, amendments, enforcement clauses, every rule Karen loved quoting at residents. And then I found it. Page 32, Section 8.4. Any HOA officer who authorizes use of privately deeded property as a common area without written owner consent is personally liable for damages, fines, and restoration costs. Signed at the bottom, Karen, HOA President. I leaned back and smiled, because Karen had just enforced the wrong rule on the wrong property. Tuesday morning, I didn't confront Karen. I let her think she'd won. Instead, I printed everything. The deed, the permits, the bylaws, the amendment Karen herself had championed at last year's annual meeting, the one about protecting HOA authority over shared spaces. I highlighted Section 8.4 in bright yellow and slipped the papers into a neat folder. Then, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to the city's Property Enforcement Office. The second was to a private restoration contractor. The third was to the HOA's management company, the one Karen liked to pretend she outranked. By noon, the wheels were turning. At 3:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. Karen. I let it ring. At 3:22, she called again. This time, her voicemail arrived breathless and sharp. "We need to talk, now. There's been some confusion." Confusion? Interesting word choice. An hour later, I returned to the building. The rooftop was empty, tables gone, bar dismantled, lights removed. My pergola, however, lay in pieces near the stairwell, scratched and bent like an afterthought. Karen stood waiting. Same pink blazer, same curls, but her posture was different, rigid, tight, like someone bracing for impact. "You called the city," she said flatly. "I reported unauthorized use of my property," I replied. She crossed her arms. "This could have been handled internally." "It was, by your own rules." She scoffed, but there was no confidence behind it. "You're blowing this out of proportion. The HOA will smooth things over." That's when the elevator doors opened. 2 city officials stepped out, followed by a man in a gray jacket carrying a clipboard. The restoration contractor. Right on time. Karen's smile evaporated. The taller official nodded to me. "You're the owner of Unit 5B?" "Yes." He turned to Karen. "Ma'am, we've confirmed this rooftop is privately deeded. Did you authorize a public event here?" Karen opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "The board." "Did you authorize it?" he repeated. "Yes," she snapped, "as HOA President." He scribbled something down. "Then you'll want to see this." He handed her a notice. Her face drained of color. "Unauthorized occupation of private property, property damage, code violations, restoration mandate, personal liability." The second official gestured toward the broken pergola. "We'll need a full assessment. Owner will receive estimates. You'll be billed directly." Karen looked at me, eyes wide. "You didn't have to do this." I tilted my head. "Around here, rules matter, remember?" She said nothing. The HOA management company rep arrived last, a thin man with tired eyes and a practiced sigh. He flipped through my folder, paused at Section 8.4, and rubbed his temples. "Karen, you signed this." "I was protecting the HOA," she snapped. "No, you exposed it, and yourself." By Friday, the numbers arrived. $2,400 for pergola replacement, $1,300 for planter repairs, $900 for professional cleaning, $2,000 city fine. Total, $6,600. Payable by the HOA president who authorized the violation. Karen called me that night. Her voice was different, smaller. "This is going to bankrupt me. The board says they can't cover it." "I shouldn't think so. The rule is clear." "You could tell them you approved the event." I waited a beat. "Did I?" Silence. "You said the HOA decides what's trespassing. Turns out the deed decides something too." She hung up. The fallout was swift. Neighbors whispered. Emails circulated. Screenshots of the bylaw clause spread like wildfire. At the next HOA meeting, Karen didn't sit at the front.
She didn't sit at all. She resigned before the vote. Official reason? To focus on personal matters. Unofficial? She'd become radioactive. The management company sent me a formal apology. The board approved a written resolution acknowledging my rooftop as permanently private. They even added a new clause: no HOA officer could reinterpret property boundaries without city review. Funny how careful people get after consequences. 2 weeks later, my pergola was rebuilt, better than before. Thicker beams, cleaner lines. I planted new herbs and rehung the solar lights. That evening, I sat alone on my roof, river glinting below, breeze steady and calm. No banners, no strangers, no pink blazers. Just quiet. I keep the city citation in a folder downstairs, right next to the HOA bylaws, open to section 8.4. A reminder, because when someone like Karen tells you the HOA is the law, sometimes the best response is letting her own rulebook introduce her to reality.